Okay, so I've hit the record button. Yes, 7 a.m. in California, in Northern California, and it's dark. Wow. Otherwise, for us UK Europeans, so bright and sunny, even sunflowers where Fiona is.
Well, well.
That's
didn't see them yesterday because we weren't on Zoom.
The green screen, yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's quickly go around and just tell us where everybody is at the moment, if you're house sitting and if you've got pets with you. So, Sunflower Girl, where are you?
I'm near Seville, Spain. I am a house sitting, but no pets, although I had a sort of extra house sit in the middle of this one last weekend where there was a cat.
Cool. And Louise, London Louise?
I'm in Beaconsfield in Buckinghamshire. One little dog and a couple of hamsters and some fish.
Aww. And Canadian Louise?
I'm in Bratton, and two elderly dogs. One's a lab and one's a Jack Russell. And then I have another half furry friend over here. Not sure what to call her.
Well, I'd be careful on what you say, because I dare say Sharon might be looking after. She might even go, "What are you looking after, Sharon?" Any elderly pets in your vicinity?
There's an old witch over there at the end of the table.
Oh dear. Okay, so just to clarify,
I'll hit you with my broom.
Louise and Sharon are together in the same house, sitting at the same table by the looks of things. Right. Anne, how about you? You're at home at the moment, so no pets?
I'm doing locals right now. Just started a 2-cat local. They'll be gone for about 10 days, and so it's great. It's in Northern California where I am.
Very
good. One is elderly and one is younger, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, so the topic was this one was definitely about the elderly pets that I guess the stories of those that we have cared for, but even just some of the, I guess, I don't know, I like to bring in the concept of the pets that we meet, not just that pets are reflections of their owners, but the pets that we get to care for and meet tend to reflect back to us something that we need to see in ourselves as well. Oh, hello, darling. So we've got, in this particular house, 3 cats. 2 of them are 11. So I know that that's not elderly in cat years, because they can definitely get up to over 20 years old. I don't know what the record is. But we've got 2 of them that are actually on medication. And I didn't want to kind of make this all about medication, more just sort of the needs and requirements of the older animals. But yeah, one, we've got a little tablet to feed, so I just literally open her mouth and she puts it down. She swallows it easily. She never spits it out. He does that. And the other one, he has to have like a little syringe in the side of his mouth of this liquid, and he hates it, and he's a bit of a bugger with it, but Nat's worked out the grab on the scruff of the neck and give it to him. But one's really quite fat. The other one is still active. He still jumps and whatever else, but the fat one is sort of like, it's that real lazy retirement kind of experience. And the younger girl is even fatter than both of them. And she's just like totally chilled out too. But it does make me sad when you see overweight animals, and, you know, it's kind of like almost you feel like they're aging quicker because of the weight that's on them, and, you know, generally medication that's required as well. But yes, in the past, I think our sweetest little older dogs that we had was little blind Anya and deaf Maggie. And oh my God, they were hilarious. They totally thought that they could pull one over on us all the time. blind Anya decided to tell us that even though we had to pick both of them up, walk downstairs to take them out for a pee, that every time she came back up, it was time to give her a treat because she had a pee. And she literally was saying, well, no, that's the rules. Like, that's what happens. So we ended up getting in contact with the owners and saying, does she get a treat every time she pees? And they're like, no. But she's like, oh, I'll work you over, youngster. Yeah. So they're quite funny. Anyone looked after sort of elderly pets with sort of special needs? And let's talk about even like their habits and what they need.
Well, I had that dog that, I mean, this was one of mine, not a house sit, that in the end his back end just completely went, as in the legs. I mean, he lived outside, so I didn't have to do anything particularly special unless we were going for a walk. But he wanted to go for a walk with everyone else, so I built him a wheelchair.
Ah, how cool.
I sort of did a bit of research, and that worked. And he lasted a few more weeks, and then he went. But
oh, well, it's sort of like that pleasure in. I have my direct experience of what's it called, palliative care. When I had my grandmother in palliative care, I got to meet this guy who was the head of the board of Queensland Palliative Care, and he was explaining to me that when it comes to funding, what they need to do is raise money to retrain nurses and doctors even for palliative care, because in the medical industry you're actually taught to diagnose and prescribe and save lives. So you actually need to untrain the medical profession for, I got goosebumps somewhere, to be able to give care with the full knowledge and understanding that they're going to leave. That's what you're there for, is to literally see out their last days. So the care and the love and the everything that would be naturally instinctively go, I've got to keep you alive, is like, no, I've just got to keep you comfortable until you're ready to go. So he was saying it's kind of like from a fund, raising money type of thing to be on that board. It's a very unsexy industry. Oh, look at the picture. There we go. And it sort of opened my eyes to just how special the caring in the final years of both humans and animals. It's I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift that we get to have with people and with pets, because we're all energy, all one. And I think maybe, tuning into that and really kind of not getting upset about it. I think when Rachel wrote that experience that she was having in the States about the dog that was dying, or the cat, I can't remember if it was a dog or cat, on See in the Inner Circle, and she was like really freaked out by it all and all that. I think there's kind of an element that all of us can bring to having dignity. It's kind of like untraining ourselves to almost be that special carer. And it's not that everyone's on deathbeds. I didn't want to make this huddle all being about kind of dying animals, but the elderlies can be quite fun, just like the humans that are older, and you get to go and talk to them, and they've got stories like no tomorrow. So yeah, that's what I want to kind of tune into. Anyone else got any stories about elderly pets or their habits?
Well, we have a couple of elderly dogs. You saw one of them. That was Rocco. The other one is Zach, and he's a big black lab. And unfortunately, he's been, they've both been a little overfed. But Zach has been overfed to the point where they limit his walking now. And he goes halfway down the road and he starts to sound like me. He's going, so you have to limit your walks. And then Rocco, being a Jack Russell, even though he's older and a little overweight, he still has more energy than Zach does. But yet they still manage to play. And Zach is still a character. He lets you know when it's time to eat. And then when he's finished eating, he grabs his bowl and he sits down with his bowl in his mouth.
No way,
Or
really?
he takes it outside and hides it outside. And then yesterday morning he brings it to me for more.
That's hilarious. Please, may I have some more?
Yeah, exactly. And then the other morning I was working away and I heard some noise and I kind of ignored it. And then I looked down and I noticed that Rocco's bowl was gone. So then there was a hunt to find Rocco's bowl, which was outside underneath a bush somewhere. I think he thinks if he hides it, maybe it'll just spontaneously grow more
Fill
food.
up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. But when you take this bowl out of his mouth, it's all full of gob and saliva. And he's just, but they play at night, in the evening. They get in the lounge and you're there watching TV and they start jumping all over each other. But they're a lot of fun. They can be really, really fun. And especially when you're not wanting to do the 26-kilometer hike for the dog walk if you don't want to. But it's just a matter of watching them and listening to them and being aware of their limitations. And when you get to the point in the walk where he's really huffing or he actually literally slows down, it's time to turn around. And then you make your way back home and all is well. But it's a different set of skills.
We saw this, she reminded us of a little dog that we had in Sicily. Saw this little girl in Vietnam that was getting walked around the perimeter of the block that we were in. And she had like the tongue like totally hanging out the side. So she'd lost her teeth, obviously. So the tongue's hanging out like this. And she just pottering along with her tongue hanging out. And it's like, oh, darling, look at you. And because our, three-legged deaf dog, definitely not young, definitely not old. He was only 3 years old, but he'd sort of like look and he'd be, and she'd sort of go, she'd have this look on her face as if to say, bugger off, you youngster, like leave me alone. She was gorgeous. So we actually had one. I'm trying to think of what sort of dog she was. We had one in Italy, and she lost her teeth as well, and this tongue hanging out, and it gets quite dry. We had to sort of like make sure she was getting enough water, and slip it back in every now and again, try and get some saliva back on it. And
we had one. There were 2 dogs, and unfortunately, they were both chubby. We maybe need. I don't know what to do with homeowners that way overfeed these pets. Yeah. And they weren't that old. The dog was smaller, maybe 50 pounds, and it was about 10 years old. But I learned a lesson. She was about 50 pounds, 45, 50. And we started going for a walk, and we were strolling. There was no marching or anything. We were just strolling along. Everything was great. The one was fine. And the chubby one was all of a sudden was finished. I'm done. And she literally sat down. That was it. She was not going anywhere any farther anymore. There I am with 2 dogs, and one of them weighs 50 pounds, and she's not going to walk anymore. And that was it. And it took a long time to get home. We rested frequently. And because, it brought home to me that I wasn't physically capable of picking up this animal.
Yeah.
So, something to think about. I want to ask questions on sits now. Are they capable of going for a walk, and how far, and so on? Because if they are not, or they're very limited, even though they don't look like they are, I need to be able to get them home.
Yeah.
In a timely manner. So I found a wagon. Now, when we finally got back, I found a wagon, and I made a nice bed in the wagon, and I put her in it thinking, this is good. Not having anything to do with that. Right out of the wagon. I'm not staying there. So I did learn a lesson to be very careful about how far you go. And, we just rested a lot.
Yeah.
And then get up and go a little more. But, her butt hit the ground, and that was the end of the walk. It was done right there.
Isn't it interesting with the graying of animals too? we had a chocolate lab, and obviously, you know, when you've got the darker colors, they show up even more. But his whole face, like, he was called Coco, the typical sort of chocolate lab thing, but his whole nose was grey, and it's kind of like he just looked like that real grey beard, like he had the whole grey beard thing going on, but he was still sort of, you know, brown on his body. Is anyone scientifically know with the connection between, say, animals and humans, like the going grey?
No, it's definitely
That's one of the signs of aging with dog. So when you look at a dog and they have varying degrees of white on their snout, that denotes how old they are, really, basically.
Just like with humans, really.
Yeah, exactly. They don't get gray hair on the rest of their body generally. It's usually just around the snout. So it's kind of like, you know, the graying around the edges of the face.
Yeah.
Or as my dad would say, his extinguished look.
not dissing.
No, extinguished.
Yes, horses also start getting white or grey around their face as well.
Yeah.
They just look gorgeous though, don't they? Like,
yeah.
You just sort of look at them differently. Oh, hello, darling. Like,
yeah. Well, it's a sign, right? And you give them maybe a little bit more respect because of it. And if humans only did that to other humans, then, you know, maybe we'd have a better world to live in. I don't know, but
well, I think that's really, and that's it. I'm sort of like really tuning into that whole kind of, it is the same between humans and animals. Like, we show that respect to elderly, you know, take a bit better care of their needs. I don't know. I liked the saying that Claire put in with that photo she had, the Velcro cat. I mean, sometimes they just want company, isn't it? You know, they just want to just be near, not actually do anything, just have company. So it's kind of nice when you do get a chance to stay at home and be with them. But yeah.
I wondered how your blind and deaf dogs did. We did a sit where there were two big labs, and they were older, maybe 10, 11 for labs. That's pretty old. And one of them was completely blind, and we were fine when we were walking. Everything was great. But then I happened to notice when they were out in the yard, they had a big yard to play in. So when they went outside, the one that had sight used to direct the other one. They would play and they would go for places, and then all of a sudden you'd see the blind one kind of, you know, veering off into the ditch or something, and the other one would go up and just kind of lean and take them where they were supposed to go. And I watched this behavior for a week, and they did. They had the one stepped in and helped the other one who couldn't see anymore. And it was remarkable because he knew it, and he just kept him out of danger. And the other one just would go with him. He'd nudge him with the shoulder, and they'd go off the other way. And
that's awesome.
It was really remarkable for me to see that. I've never seen that kind of behavior, but they will help each other. So kindness.
It is. It's beautiful. We had this little tiny chihuahua. I think she was the smallest chihuahua we've ever looked after, and she was blind, and blind and deaf, actually, she was. So you had to be really careful, kind of. She wasn't fully deaf, but she was, you know, losing her hearing. But you had to be really careful coming up to her to sort of not frighten her and stuff. But part of the care with her was that she actually slept in the bed with you, and she snored like a trooper. She was like a freight train. She was literally that big, and she'd be asleep beside you going, it was crazy.
Did you have competition, Jodie?
Yeah, and that wasn't a lose-lose situation.
I have, I don't do dogs generally, but my son and his wife have Riley, who's quite an old dog, and Riley's been in the family for a lot longer than the grandchildren have. So I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the way he handles them is awesome. He's just there to look after. He looks after them. He'll sit beside them and take care. and protect them when they're out in their pushchair and stuff like that. Just walk beside them quietly and take care. And then in his space in the lounge room, kids will climb all over him and he will just sit there and let them do whatever they do. And then
Amazing.
if enough, he'll just get up and walk off. He's so cool. Yeah.
I love that.
He's just like a patient old granddad.
Yeah. Well,
but it amazes me because he was in the family way before them, and when they came along, you could see he was trying to figure out what is going on around here, you know. Where do I sit? Where do I go? And once he's figured it out, he's just accepted how it is. And, yeah, taken them on as his too.
They're just brilliant. The house that we've got in Belgium, it's not an old dog or anything, but they've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and the photos that they'd sent through of the dog, the kids are like riding him like a horse. And you're going, whoa, you must be pretty patient, because they're wrangling him all the time. And so I think the dogs...
They like, the kids aren't allowed to hurt him or anything like that. Like, parents watch and take care.
Yeah.
But just blows
the patience.
How patient he is, with them, and how good he is with them.
Yeah.
And how he just accepted them. Mind you, I guess he didn't really have a choice. They just turned up one day. Yeah.
I'm just realizing now, it's like, as we're talking, it's like we've actually looked after quite a few elderly. One of the saddest ones was, it's actually a girl I went to school with. She had 2, I've got to get the right name, 𝗤𝗲𝗍. The 𝗤𝗲𝗍 are the chocolatey coloured ones. The 𝗤𝗲𝗍s are the fluffy ones, isn't it? Is that the right one? Because we had 𝗤𝗲𝗍s last year in Tassie.
With an N.
Bernese
mountain dogs?
No, it's a cat.
Cats.
No,
Burmese, yes, you're
Burmese.
right. I'm wrong. Never mind.
So I think 𝗤𝗲𝗍s are the beautiful fluffy ones, the blue eyes, but 𝗤𝗲𝗍s are like the chocolate, beautiful colours that they come in, like cappuccino and chocolate and all these beautiful. Anyway, she had two of them, and not long before we got there to house sit, it was brother and sister. The boy had passed away, and they were 18, and the little girl, she had. You get to know the different meows, like with sort of what goes on. And she was calling us, like telling us when it was time to change a kitty litter, because apparently she couldn't go to the kitty litter if there was anything in there. It was like human slave, clean up after me all the time. So we got to know that cry, and it's not a Siamese cry, but it was similar. It was a real kind of like demanding. And then we started hearing this different meow that was going on, and we sort of were walking around following one day going, what's the matter? And then she was searching for him. She was walking around the house calling out for him. It was heartbreaking. She'd go into each of the rooms of the house just like going, like kind of, where are you? And I think she was sort of borderline with I guess like a kind of dementia, or I don't know what they diagnose with the animals, whether it's Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever it is, but she was getting a little bit confused by it all, and it was really sad, but yeah.
When the homeowner doesn't tell you that, stop it. When the homeowner doesn't tell you that they're sick when they're old, because they don't like to admit it themselves.
Yeah, or the burden sort of aspect maybe.
Yeah, well, I had a cat, and turned out it had, what is it when it needs to drink, kidney problems, and it needs to drink lots of water. So she didn't tell me that. It was quite an old cat, and I knew it was an old cat, and it didn't leave home. It just sort of lounged around on the grass outside the front door every day. But it had cat bowls all over the place, so you kept the water going all the time. But then it disappeared, and about 2 hours later I realised the cat was missing, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I rang up the homeowner's sister, which was my contact, and she came down, and we were searching all around the neighbourhood, and it turned out the cat had gone next door to the neighbours and was trying to drink out of the pool, and it was just a big fluff in the pool. It was really gross, and I freaked out. I'd killed the cat. But when I told the homeowner, she said, it's done that before. It's gone next door to drink out of the swimming pool because I had kidney problems. So,
Oh my God.
you know, you've got to be told this stuff.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
freaked out, but she was fine with it. She said, I'm sorry, you should have known that. But man, yeah, that was what a way to go.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
It is funny when you see the cats drink out of a swimming pool, though. It's like, can't you taste the chlorine? Like,
I
what are you doing?
I know. And then the poor neighbours came home and found this cat floating in their pool.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Hello, Fiona.
That was a nice way for
I
you to
think-
join the conversation, wasn't it?
Go.
Ah, dearie me. Yes. Any other stories?
Well, I can go all night, Jody.
Yeah.
So when one of my dogs passed away, the vet was there and pronounced her because she died while the vet was on the way to euthanize her. But the vet made sure that my other dog came into the room. We called him and saw her. In other words, was a witness, got to smell her and know that this animal has passed.
Yeah.
And he didn't make a big deal out of it. He was like, "Yep, okay, she's dead. That's it." But he knew it. And my neighbor, I had two Doberman, a pet sit for two Dobies, Ginger and Garlic. Not kidding. That's what they named them. But they were beautiful Dobermans, and one of them did die. And they hid the body and took it away and didn't let the other animal be aware of it.
So I was looking for it.
All the time. Just walked the yard, walked the house, looked for this other, because they were siblings and they had grown up together and they were old. And it was kind of sad, but they wanted to spare the feelings.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with animals, they're not more feeling driven as much as this is a fact. Okay, this one died, and now we move on. But if they don't get to acknowledge that, I think it's harder on the animal. That's just my personal feeling.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's the smelling sense.
Right, Anne.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. When we had to put down Buddha, our dog, Husky Shepherd Cross, we had two other dogs, and we didn't have a choice. He was in horrible pain, so we had the vet come to the house. And the vet came and gave him the shots, and he relaxed, and then gave him the other one, and his heart stopped. And then we let the dogs out from the graded area and let them come over. And they came over and they sniffed him and gave him a lick and then walked away, and everything was fine. They just need to know that they're gone. It's not an emotional thing. It's just they need to know and understand that they're gone, and so they don't look for them and they don't pine for them at all.
Mm. Yeah, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think people are kind, and they want to spare them. And
It's humans projecting their emotions on the animal is what it is. It's how the human feels, not how the animal feels.
You're absolutely right. They want to spare their little loved furry thing, and they don't want to hurt them. And it's misguided. They don't understand it. So anyway, that's why we educate them, right?
Has anyone had any grumpy old cats or dogs? Like the movie Grumpy Old Men. Oh, you're muted, Lou. Or are you talking to each other?
No, I didn't really want to say that out loud, so I didn't unmute.
Talking of reflections. So, Fiona, you joined us. Are you on mute? Are you ready to unmute you?
Unmute.
Oh, there we go. There you go.
Yay! I literally walked in the house from my motorhome in Norfolk and remembered that the huddle was on. So I was just like, cup of tea.
Very cool. So we've just been sharing a few stories of elderly care, but elderly pet care. But yeah, we've only really talked cats and dogs. I guess horses would be more Fiona Crawford's domain, but any elderly care, like I did have one grumpy old man in Australia, but that was actually it was like his childhood issues. He must have had been touched or hit or hurt at some stage with somebody, like him being under their feet, but of course he still remains under their feet all the time. So if he's asleep now, because he's older and he sleeps a lot more, if he's asleep and you go to get up and move, you've got to be super aware of where he is, because if you touch him slightly, he actually goes and he will bite and attack you, and to the point that it was a referral that I put in the inner circle, and Ruth Johnson and her teenage son, who's really tall now, and they've house sat all around the world. I put them in contact, and the lady said, "Oh no, I just couldn't bear to think that like having a child in the house." It's like, well, he's actually kind of a young man. Like even though he's early teenagers, he's actually a very big, tall young man, and he's very experienced with animals. And she says, "Oh no, but I just can't trust Harry because if he accidentally hit him and he goes at you, I wouldn't want a child to get injured." It's like, okay, fine. Can't convince her otherwise. But yeah, he was a grumpy little shit sometimes. He'd scare the crap out of you too if he kind of went for your feet. Oh, look.
What was he, Jody? What was it?
Maltese Terrier.
So small.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He had a little bit of the small man syndrome, but it was a trauma though. Like it was a trauma from being young. So I think he may have gotten hurt, but it was like a real memory thing.
I think as well with really elderly dogs, if they've had any negative experiences when they were young, their ability to be resilient in the very last few months just seems to go, and they can't deal with the things that they've probably spent quite a lot of energy dealing with and being good about. They just stop doing that, and they get less and less willing to be resilient.
Like humans, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's what this whole conversation's ended up being about, around the animals being just like humans. Hello, Sandra. Welcome along. And if anyone needs to go, that's totally fine, but we're just sort of having a bit of a catch-up around our stories of elderly pets, their habits, and I guess the reflection aspect of how humans are just like the animals. Or how the animals are just like the humans too. I guess that's another element of when you've got a neurotic type of homeowner, and you can see that the pets are neurotic, but then they can calm down. And I guess in answer to your question before, we're kind of dealing with this at the moment. Like the 3 cats we've got here, 2 of them are really quite overweight. One of them is okay because he's a lot more active, but we're just not feeding them as much. Like, I know we've got our routine of what we should be doing, but even if they were asking for the extra food, I mean, she waddles. Like, she waddles. If she actually had to have a flight situation of be on the move if something was attacking her, she wouldn't be able to move. She just can't. She's so big. But
that's going to make her feel more vulnerable if she can't get away.
And she's a real scaredy cat, I think, because of it too. Like, she literally is like always freaking out. We were talking about that the other day, going, where did that saying come, the scaredy cat? And then we take one look at her and she's like, that's where it is. I should show you her, actually. She doesn't look that big when she's on this chair, but Callie, say hello, darling. Say hello.
Goodness. Oh.
Hello, darling. She's got a big belly. You can't tell on the chair, but when she stands up, she waddles like crazy. You're okay, Sophie.
Oh, she's cute.
But that's the amount of food that we've got. They've all got like 2 bowls of wet and dry food. And here's the other guy. He's a bit big. Enki, say hello, darling.
Oh, he's cute.
Hello.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, he's cute.
And this is the active one. This is Mishima.
Good impression of active.
He's the slim one. Yeah, not this time of day. Oh dear. And fluff going everywhere because it's summer and they're molting like crazy.
God. Hairballs? Are there hairballs involved?
Well, she freaks out if you rub one of the boys and the hair floats around. She's like, ah, like runs away because she can't stand the fluff floating around in the air. Sandra, have you looked after any elderlies?
Yes, we talking about cats. We looked after Rosie. Rosie was 18 years young.
Aww.
And she came with a 4-inch binder of instructions.
Oh, wow.
And she was lovely. She really was. She was just so sweet. They said, the homeowner said that she was really bossy, but we just thought that she just told you what she wanted. Like, she just talked to you constantly. And the more you brushed her, the more she talked and purr at the same time. It was amazing. And the one thing that she didn't like was the vacuum, and she told you that she didn't like the vacuum. But other than that, it was really sweet, really, really sweet. And 𝗄𝗂𝗍 was a cat, and she was from Spain, and I think she was pushing 19 the last time we saw her. She's now passed. But she was so thin. She wouldn't eat very much, but she would eat out of her hand, so we would hand feed her. And but she was just lovely. But when you pat her, because she was so skinny, you had to cup your hand.
Yeah, when I've done that. Yeah, you've just reminded me of a guy we had in Nicaragua. Completely forgot. A couple of the Inner Circle people also looked after him. His name was Pistol. And I don't know what sort of dog he was, but he was so skinny in his hind hips. It was just all bone. So you wanted to pat him, but you kind of couldn't because it was just this skinny, bony hip thing. Yeah. Ugh.
That was 𝗄𝗍. Exactly. You had to be so gentle with her. But she was just a love. So that's the only thing. Charlie was a big bull mastiff, and he was older. He's all gray and stuff like that. But very strong and stuff. I don't know, all of them you just kind of get attached to. But I was worried about 𝗄𝗍, and I said to Diana, the homeowner, I said, God forbid something happens. What do we do, right? It's a difficult conversation. And she kind of went, I never thought of that. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Right, but, yeah. Yeah, but anyways, 𝗄𝗍 does...
I think with all the different sort of elderly pets,
I think it's a difficult. What do you do?
Yeah, I was just about to say we're actually now realizing how many elderly pets we have looked after, but it was probably Pistol was the first one that we got worried about because it was like, wow, like he's really looking like he's on his last legs sort of thing, and his whole routine. Because in Nicaragua they have a lot of those colonial homes where it's like the indoor-outdoor living, like your kitchen is actually outdoors, but then it just goes straight into a bedroom that's sort of right off the kitchen dining area. And he would stay in the bedroom. We'd have to keep the blinds pulled because it was dark and cool, and he'd stay in there, and then he'd get up and he would just literally sort of stumble out into the kitchen area, and he couldn't always make it down the stairs to go to the toilet, so we would literally have him peeing and pooing in the kitchen as such, but it was outdoors, so it was still just tiles, so you could kind of get rid of it easily or whatever. But yeah, he'd kind of stumble out and try to get his bearings a bit, and then he'd just turn around and stumble back into the room, and we're like, oh God, like this really is the aged care facility here at the moment. Bloody hell. And you're really kind of on edge, like, oh, Pistol, yeah, okay.
And he'd warn you about how he was? I mean, do the pet owners let you know what you're going to deal with, or are they kind of kidding themselves with these animals? Or?
This couple were really good, and she basically had said, because we weren't there for very long on the house set, and we kind of had everything sorted out, but she said, look, don't be afraid that he's probably just going to sleep in the shower, because when it gets really hot, he would go in and lay on the cold tiles, or just come into the bedroom and he'd, you know, sleep in there all the time. But yeah, he was the one that probably had us the most worried, I guess. And the only other time that we had was, and it wasn't an elderly dog, but well, I don't know, I guess, as I say, the bigger the dog, the shorter the years. So he was a Belgian Bouvier, and I think he was probably only about 9. But just before we got to Breckenridge for the second time to look after him, his owner had told us that he'd been diagnosed with liver cancer and he may not last the time that we were there. And that was actually our tragic story, where we'd previously arranged with the homeowner that we were going to go to a wedding in Mexico for 5 days, and Angelito came to Breckenridge to take care of Hamish while we went to Mexico. And bloody Hamish decided that he was going to go on Angelito's watch, not ours. And we were literally hours from getting back. And it was sort of like a big story around it, because, I mean, Angelito's name literally means little angel. And we'd taken care of Hamish, 2 years running. And his dad's, had said to us, it's like, oh, you guys are his mums and we're his dads. And it was almost as if Hamish had chosen to not die on his dad's or his mum's. He chose his little angel. And it was quite a traumatic experience for Angelito, obviously, but he did such an amazing job and was with him right through. Like he said, literally as he was given the shot on the vet's table, because I mean everything, all of Hamish's organs had failed on him, and he was a big dog, like he was like probably 60 pounds, and Angelito had to pick him up and get him in the back of the car and take him to the vet. But he said as he was given his shot, it had been a really overcast morning, and at that moment the sun literally just shone through into the vet's room. He said it was just amazing, and it was like this feeling, and one of the neighbours had gone with him, and he had a dog as well, and they did the same thing. They took Patch into the room, and Patch got to, sort of say goodbye to him as well. Yeah, it was hard. And then we had to because then we got back there, and we had then 3 weeks out of our 3-month house sit, but the last 3 weeks without him being there, that was probably the most useless I've ever felt. It's like, why are we here? It was a bizarre experience, but I think that's the thing we have to be aware of with elderly pets, though. So yeah, it is an important discussion to have. What is the plan? And we had our contingency plan, because this was a warning, and we had the brother-in-law who was a vet and blah blah. The problem was with the whole getting in touch with the owners was the time difference, because they were in Hawaii, and it was literally middle of the morning, like 2 a.m. or something. We just weren't going to be able to get in contact with them for 4 or 5 hours, which was after Hamish had passed. So they had to make a decision without him. But it's the importance of getting the plans in place, though, isn't it? And otherwise, just be there to care and put up with their little antics and whatever else I say, like show that respect like you would to people. Hopefully we could all do that. Do we all do that?
Or even just your own elderly pet. If you've been through it with your own pet, you're more prepared. Maybe if people have never owned a pet that lived long, they haven't been through that twilight time.
Yeah. Is it typical for homeowners, pet owners on these sits to even go that far if they have an really elderly pet? Do they actually, or is it something that you ask routinely as pet sitters? If you have an elderly pet, is it sick enough that it's maybe going to pass, and how do you want to handle that? Is that something that you talk about?
Yeah, I always ask, even if a pet is young. We did a farm sit in New Zealand, and they had 3 pet dogs that were young and 3 working dogs that were quite a bit older. And we just said to them, you know, if there was a worst case scenario and one of the dogs was badly injured, what do you want us to prioritize? And they said, and with the working dogs, anything to do with eyes, you go straight to the vet and we don't care what it costs. If a dog is seriously mangled, we don't believe in spending thousands and thousands. We would want you to ask the vet to euthanize. So at least we had a bit of a barometer, you know, between what to do. And they also said, listen, our vets have known us for decades. They know the sorts of decisions we make. The vet will know what to do. So I felt reassured that they would do that. But I was glad that we asked. They probably thought we were being overcautious, but for us it was 40 kilometers to the vets. So I needed to know, you know, what sort of circumstances would I be getting in the car and ringing a vet saying I'm on my way. And I'm glad I did, because the puppy, the youngest dog that we were looking after, got a grass seed in its eye, but I couldn't see it. So I felt really confident that it was okay to cost that money and just take the puppy without, because I couldn't get in touch with them. They were somewhere like Stewart Island hiking for 4 days, just no contact. So I think it's okay to talk to homeowners, even if they think you're being really overly conscientious.
Look, you're going to get the mix. It's like we're still just human, and we've got a whole range of people. So we've got like the super cautious people that, you know, we even had one couple that weren't going to give us the car. And when it came down to kind of talking about the animals, and then like, oh, well, it's probably best that you do have the car so that you can go. And even in the UK, you know, where it's different with the insurances, we did have one situation where the homeowners just went, look, I've gone and paid the extra £60 to put you on the license because it's actually cheaper to do that than for you to get in a cab if you need to go to the vet. Now, we didn't need to go to the vet. We didn't drive the car either. But, most people will be, especially when they're the super conscientious pet parents, they're going to have all of that in place.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Good to know that, because anyway, good.
And I think for yourself, just trust your own intuition as well. Like, just trust that if you're getting an inclination that, you know, that particular pet is older or seeming needy or whatever, then you're naturally prompted to ask those questions to give yourself peace of mind. You know, if everything seems all above board or the homeowners are a bit OTT, I mean, to be honest, generally it's easier to deal with a more neurotic homeowner, because then you're covering all bases and getting a four bloody chapter, what are they called, binder thing. But yeah, it's sort of, when you have the more blasé people, you've got to just trust your own instincts to say, okay, I need to kind of find out here now, because I don't want to be. Sometimes the blasé homeowners can be the ones that are a bit more, you know, if something does go wrong, you just don't know which way they're going to go either.
Yeah.
You know, like,
we had that with a cat sit. The cat died really unexpectedly, and they were so blasé, they'd barely left any instructions. They just said, oh yeah, cat food twice a day, it's in the cupboard, and that was it. Really very little information. And the cat died. I don't know what happened to it. We came down, it was in the back garden, and it was dead. We don't know if it got hit by a car or had managed to come back through the hedge and into the garden. And we didn't know what to do. So slightly embarrassing, but we made a decision that they might want to bury it somewhere special. And it was winter in the UK. So we wrapped it in a towel and made some space in the freezer. And then we were leaving before they got back, and they had children. So we had to leave this sort of cryptic note stuck inside the back door saying, please check the second drawer down on your own with no children present. And then a second note inside the freezer drawer saying, before you open this bag, I'm really sorry to tell you this happened. I just didn't know what else to do. And I was like, okay, it was another week from when the cat died to when they were getting home. So I couldn't have left the cat anywhere else. So
I'm going to have to find there's an Aussie skit that it was like one of those Australian stories, I think it was. Did anyone watch that when they were in Australia? And Hamish and Andy, who are these two comedians, they get these normal everyday people to tell these stories. And there was this regional airport where they were under instruction to collect this cat and then you know, somebody was coming to pick it up the next day or whatever. But when they've received the cat's dead, and they're like, oh my God, did we do it? Did we do it? Do we do this? So they've made this whole big thing where they've run down to the shelters and they're trying to find another cat, and then the colour wasn't the same, and they've tried to spray paint it and do all these things. And when the people arrived to collect their cat, you know, the two little kids are there looking at this cat going, Mum, is that such a, like the cat's name? And the guy's sort of saying, what's happening here? We actually... our cat died, and we were just trying to ship him back to actually get him buried at home. And now, because they've literally replaced this cat. It was quite a funny story, but it has to be regional Australia for that to have happened. But yeah, who saw the thing in the inner circle where that chat was going? I can't remember what it was. And Charles Dorsch had written that as well. I think somebody had said, what are the weirdest instructions you've had? And Charles had written like, oh yeah, when you open the freezer, just move it aside because, you know, Lulu is there as well. So you've literally got the proper story of that, Fiona. That's fantastic. Oh, dear me. Hello, Laura. You came in a little bit late. All right, we might wrap it up there unless you guys want to stay and chat. I'm thinking it's nearly 1 o'clock here in France, so sorry there for you guys over in the Americas. Coffee time there, and 1 o'clock here. Or gin o'clock for okay, there we go. Louise is
You're not
working
having
up.
a glass of wine. Goodness.
It's always gin o'clock somewhere.
Gin
I even
o'clock.
have
I
gin
like
in my
that.
motorhome, just in case.
I like the doormat of Nikki's latest house set. No gin, no come in.
Yeah.
No gin,
I
no
want
come
that.
in. Oh God.
I'm so sorry, Jodie, with that wicked little laugh.
Sorry?
Where it's not gin o'clock.
Where it's not gin o'clock.
Taking coffee and now it's time for gin.
I thought you were going to tell me that you've had too much and you can't handle it.
Not yet.
You know, I've never in my life had a gin.
Oh, we're going to have to fix that at the conference for you.
Yeah, come on now.
Not a martini drinker? Don't do martinis. Oh my. You have no idea what you've been missing.
Well,
And the next morning, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Someone.
I love how Nikki's calling herself a gin snob, and she's definitely got to have the best qualities. But I think that's a perfect end to the talk on elderly pet care, because you can just do what you want as an animal, as a human, as we age. I think that's the beauty of having that experience.
Yeah.
Getting older.
Okay.
Which
Bye.
we all are.
Which we all are. We can't avoid it.
What? No.
Didn't you know life's a terminal disease?
Oh, who said that? No. I want my money back.
Oh, dearie me. Well, we may as well just make the most of it while we've got the opportunity to.
Exactly.
Bye.
Bye.